Okay, so now we produce the cost management plan, which is going to have all the details we talked about. Now we flow into the actual hardcore part of the unit, which is to estimate the cost. And we're going to have all kinds of things coming in on the left-hand side as before, and then several things we can do to actually do cost estimation. And in fact, this is one area that most organizations are extremely good at. So if we take a look at the inputs into cost estimation, the cost management plan is probably the most important one. We're also going to need the human resource management plan, how we're going to manage our people, and we'll talk about that in a couple of units, how we actually do that. The scope baseline basically is going to sharpen up or hone the budget process, because that's going to give us basically the scope statement with the work breakdown structure and WBS dictionary, and give us some indication of the level of budget detail we need to exercise. The project schedule, we need this to cost out the activities. We may have to worry about the cost of financing if we have to generate bonds or things like that. There may be seasonal cost variations. There may be human resource costings that change. So for example, if you need to hire temporary work in Alberta, right now you're going to pay a premium because there are not very many people around not working. And then the environmental enterprise factors and things like marketplace conditions and commercial databases and so on. And the organization has probably got very strong ways of handling cost estimation. I'll get there yet. There we go. And they may have procedures we have to follow as part of the organization's way of doing business. We need to know about those. Then we go into the 10 different techniques we can use here for cost estimation. Expert judgment is the first way to start. If we know the unit cost rates, the staff cost per hour or function points per month or cost per cubic meter, whatever the actual rate is, that's a good start. We can get quotes from vendors that will tell us how expensive things are. For stock items, there are standard rates plus possibly inflation factors or cost of oil, inflators, and that sort of thing. We can use commercial sources, and if we don't have those, then we have to do the estimation and justify the estimates that we've made. The second way of doing things is analogous estimation, where we compare this against a similar project, just as we did with scheduling. This is a top-down approach and is another form of expert judgment. If we don't have much to begin with, except this is work similar to what we've done in the past, that's a good way to start. So it's a cheap way to get the estimates, even though they may not be terribly accurate. They're most accurate when the projects are really quite similar, or the people really are experts in assessing things. The third way, again, just like with scheduling, is to do parametric estimation, if there's a functional relationship. Contractors building suburban houses, for example, might build a house for $100 a square foot. You give them the square footage, and then they tell you how much it's going to cost based on that. And because they built so many in the past, they know that's a pretty good metric to use. The function points we talked about, and this is best if we've got a method that's been used industry-wide for a long time. The fourth way, if we can't use any of those other three, is to do bottom-up estimation. In this case, we start at the bottom of the work breakdown structure and start estimating and then roll those numbers up to the top until we actually get an estimate for the entire project. Now, normally we can estimate it very accurately when we got just a simple work package to actually estimate. And we're assuming, of course, that we've got a sufficient breakdown of the work breakdown structure to actually do the estimation. Three-point estimation we've talked about before, the rule of 6, most likely, most optimistic, most pessimistic. We can do that and come up with basically a beta estimate or even a triangular estimate if we want to even be simpler. Reserve estimates, we're going to need contingency funds here for the project reserves and management reserves, as we talked about before. And then the cost of quality is going to affect our costing too, because the higher the quality in the product at the other end and or the project plan, the costlier the plan is going to be. Using project management software makes things a lot simpler. In fact, a lot of project managers simply use Excel, and they keep track of all their figures with an Excel spreadsheet. If we have vendor bid analysis involved, we can check out various bids to make sure they're consistent. If we're bidding to get a contract, then we may have to do additional work to justify the final cost of the contract. And the output from 7.2 is the activity cost estimates, plus the basis by which we did the estimation. In other words, we have to justify where we got the numbers from and be able to back that up. And so here we've got the likely cost of the resources to complete the activity. Now, we're going to basically be talking about, I'll get there yet, labor, for example, materials, equipment, services, anything associated with that to actually come up with a cost number. The basis of the estimates are, where do we get these estimates from? So we need to talk about the activity scope of work, the documentation of how we made the estimate. We want to denote all the assumptions and constraints that we took into consideration, the range of the estimates, plus or minus, and the confidence level that we have that we've got good estimates. Now here are some estimates taken from Kirchner's famous book on project management. He defines 6 different levels of estimates, starting from definitive within roughly 5%, going all the way down to order of magnitude, which he defined to be greater than 35%, but that's his own way of doing it. Here is the American Association of Cost Estimators, and in fact, this is what these people do for a lifetime. And you see they have a Class 1 estimate, which is order of magnitude, Class 2 conceptual, Class 3 preliminary, Class 4 definitive, Class 5 control. And so by the time we baseline our cost estimates, we would be at the definitive level. And at the controlling level, we'd be within 2%. These guys here corresponds to the beginning of the project before we have a lot of detail. I like the AAC better, I think.